Um, so I really fell in love with genre there and really learned what was going to be important to me as far as storytelling and pushing and kind of representing people who maybe don't see themselves on screen. And then, yeah, I created this insane show called Wynonna, and they let us make it, which is amazing.
Well, so how did that come to be? Like, how did Wynonna going from having the idea and where you just were to okay, now you're going to production on this massive television show? How did that? What was that process
Right.
like?
I mean, you when you are developing stuff as a writer, especially if you're known as someone who does sort of sci-fi or fantasy, you get brought a lot of IP or intellectual property. You get pitched a lot of comic books and novels and short stories. So I got pitched this comic book that was kind of a cult hit in the 90s called
Mm-hmm.
Wynonna Earp. And it was about this demon hunter who was a descendant of Wyatt Earp. Um, but because I was from out west, I really got goosebumps when I read this particular comic. I was like, I would really love the chance to take a big production back out west to do kind of a reinvention of the supernatural western, so to speak. But also, when you're like developing things, the truth is you almost have nothing to lose. So I kind of pitched it as this amalgamation of Justified meets Frozen. I really wanted it to be about sisters and women and people who are sort of generally left out of Westerns as the protagonists, so to speak. Um, yeah, and SyFy and CTV basically bought it, which was insane. They were like, if you can pull that off, that's going to be a miracle. And look, it's always felt like an underdog of a show, but we've kind of amassed this real cult following and this huge, passionate audience who just are incredible.
I wanted to touch on that. Like the fandom of this show is insane. I mean,
Mhm.
it was well covered in the media. I think it was between 3 and 4 seasons, 3 and seasons 4. There was some financial issues with the production of the show, and
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think before Wynonna I've heard of a fan base renting billboards in Times Square in New York to raise awareness for this. I mean, what does that feel like knowing that you are the showrunner and you've built not only this show and this brand, but you've also brought people together around the world around
Aw.
Wynonna Earp. I mean, that must feel incredible.
It does feel incredible. It truly takes a team. I want to make that really clear. Like, it is just so gratifying as a writer or to do what you do, David. Even like, I'm sure whenever people consume what you're putting out there, you're like, this is amazing that people
Yeah,
want to hear what I have to say
most of
out
the
of my
time.
crazy brain. Yeah, for me, I'm like, wow, I can't believe people have kind of connected to the stories I want to tell. The thing that's most interesting to me about the fandom of Earpers, they call themselves, is like, look, the truth about Wynonna Earp is it's a show about a demon hunter. There's lots of gore and blood and sex, and it's very fun. It's very like Buffy meets Tarantino. But I think because it's so inclusive with its characters, the fandom has kind of mimicked that, and they've kind of taken it on to decide that they are going to be the most like kind and welcoming fandom sort of in genre, which doesn't always happen.
Hmm.
Um, how did it feel? I mean, I did something kind of crazy when the show was in trouble. You know, you go through all the professional channels, and I kind of put out a Hail Mary on social media where I sort
Hmm.
of said, we need help saving the show. I basically dropped an F bomb and was like, we need help. But you know, it's like anything. When you ask for your friends or family to rally for you, you're not sure they're going to show up. So the fact that these Earpers kind of got it immediately and started a letter writing campaign and renting, I think they rented over 300 billboards
Hmm.
in Times Square and on the Paramount lot in LA. There was one in Hong Kong, in Thailand, and London. Like, I think it really taught them about fighting for what you want and what you believe in. And just the fact that they felt the show represented them and that they knew they were owed more. That's what had been promised. It was incredibly moving. I don't think you can ever be, you can't take that for granted. Do you know what I mean? That all these people kind of said, we love what you do and we want you to do more. And of
Hmm.
course, the miracles, like the truth is, we've seen a lot of like fan campaigns in the last few years trying to save shows and whatnot. But this one worked. It really worked. The Earpers kind of rallied and became impossible to ignore. And They were like poring over financial statements of the company that was having trouble, that couldn't fund the show. And we came back for season 4. At the same time, it's a lot of responsibility when people have fought for you to do that. You're like, God, I hope I can make a show that's good enough for them to feel like it was worth fighting for. So, but you still have to put that out of your mind and just do what you do, which is tell the stories in a way that maybe they find satisfying, but still surprising. But it, without a doubt, was the career highlight of my life.
And so, I mean,